So kiss me in heaven after we die. Baby, I promise, 'cause I need more than one life with you.
Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan. What's happening, man?
So much stuff going on. All kinds of things. All kinds of sports, all kinds of everything.
All sorts of buttons I have to push over here.
I drove by, I don't know. Did we share with the listeners that I have taken a step back coaching?
I don't think so.
I don't remember if we did or not.
And you're still complaining about not having any time.
Well,
so I don't think it helped you at all.
No, but I drove by today on the way here, and the Lancers are playing Jennifer today.
Yeah.
So drove by there on the way this direction tonight, and just crazy to think that for 10 years I was out on the field, and kind of weird not being out there coaching tonight as I watched those guys.
So welcome in. It's another absolute fantastic edition, 149th show that we have for you
140
here. We got a lot to talk about, as Robert just mentioned. Obviously, Major League Baseball playoffs are getting closer and closer. A couple of teams have already clinched their ticket, and we'll talk all about that. A couple insane races going on, as well as 2 weeks into the National Football League, and there are teams that are eliminated, and that we will continue our eliminator, even though I continue to refuse to put it in our notes, apparently. But we will get to that along with awards for both of those sports. Colorado continues to win in college football. That was a what's the word I want? An interesting game that they had with Colorado State. Chippy, that was the word I was looking for.
And we thought it was too much hype at one point.
It is still too much hype.
Still a lot of hype.
That Fox Sports went back to Colorado for a Colorado State game, and the ratings were ridiculous. And yes, Deion Sanders is definitely changing the aspect of Colorado, and it'll be great for the Big Ten or wherever conference that they are ending up at. And who knows? Sports-related draft will be at the top of the next hour. It is the greatest Hail Marys of all time.
I need votes. I'm just telling you now. I need votes. Lots of folks. If you're listening on...
begging for votes because he knows what he has is wrong.
I went homer on one of them. I even told you I went homer.
It's a thing. Just kind of because of Russell Wilson's little Hail Mary that tipped all over the place, that set up for the 2-point conversion that was not to be, but still was an excuse to talk about some Hail Marys out there. Obviously, we get into some local stuff as well. Tampa Bay getting a new stadium in a few years, though the pictures that they came out with, the designs for it, I'm not a fan.
I'm
really not a fan. I'll get into all our football picks and so much more. But before we get started, we have to congratulate one of our own, our most frequent guest here on the R&R Sports Report, Alicia Alexander, who is the sports information director and now
assistant athletic director
of sports communications / something. Her title now is ridiculous.
It's more than 25 words long now. Is it?
Yeah, it doesn't fit on her thing. If you go to her personal info page on the website, it is just too long and it gets cut off. But she was named the NAIA Sports Information Director of the Year. It's officially announced on Friday. I was able to write the blurb for her on that. Absolutely happy for her. Very well deserved, and she continues to just break down barriers. She's the first Cascade Conference woman to win the SID of the Year award. She's now won it twice. Now she's the first woman to ever win the NAIA Sports Information Director of the Year. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and to be, and not to even compare, this young lady, she works her tail off, and I as much as if anybody has ever met her knows that what she puts into the time, you know,
you need to move your microphone into.
It's unbelievable.
There he is.
I was trying to make sure that the camera was on tonight. I couldn't visually. Yeah, but you have to have this great platform
that I have over here that makes everything work well.
But the time that she puts in, and it's like I shared the post, shared the article that you had talked about, but it was all about what she puts into this, not only just the students, but even the other ball clubs coming in, especially NAIA in World Series time. the amount of hours that she puts in and who she deals with on a regular basis with the crew that we work with in volleyball and basketball. And,
for sure. And I also give her credit for really helping grow the Cascade Conference as far as sports information directors go. Like when I first started doing volleyball, the information I got from most of the other schools was non-existent. Now I'm getting all sorts of stuff. There's some good SIDs out there, and there were before her, and they continue to grow and they work together very well. But yeah, some of the packets I used to get were non-existent, and there are still schools. It's far less than there were, but there's still a school or two where it's like, did they play? What happened here? Because I've got zero information
going on
at all. So congratulations to Alicia. I'm sure we will have her on the show again here in the future, maybe before basketball, maybe before baseball. Just kind of depends how schedules work. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into Monday Night Football. And I'm going to ask you right off the bat, because we get it again this upcoming week. It's the last few years, it was only week 1 where they tried this experiment, though it was in a different format than what we had this time. This year, Monday Night Football gets 2 games on week 2 and 3, but they're only starting an hour different. So you can't really watch one and then the other. You get to pick and choose. So first experiment with it. What did you think, and do you like it or not?
I kind of liked it, but I was more interested in game 2 one. Game 2 because of it being a AFC North matchup. But yeah, I mean, it was quite entertaining to be able to watch both of them. So I was in a hurry, get everything done really quick. You got about a 40-minute window from the time I get off work to get there and watch. But I liked it. I don't know. I liked it more than flipping back and forth and listening to Peyton Manning and Eli Manning with their simulcast stuff. But I enjoyed it. I like it, but I don't know how well the NFL would like to have 2 games every
I think they
week.
would absolutely love it, especially because both games were hot garbage. Especially the first one. Carolina and New Orleans was unwatchable,
right?
Especially early on. I mean, it was, if you like defensive football, then you had a heyday with that game, but nothing was great. And then Cleveland and Pittsburgh was just a mess. The turnovers were all over the place. There were just balls getting dropped left and right, and you had that weird fumble drill at one point that went like 35 different places and bounced around. It was not good football last night. Which was good. You can flip around and try to find something.
And we've talked about this, and maybe this is just expanding. I mean, we want to see football every night, and I think that's what the NFL is trying to do, and ESPN and all those guys too. But they're growing the game where it's being seen pretty much every day. Now you've got 2 choices on Monday. You got Sunday. You got Thursday night. You got all these other. The only night nothing really is happening right now is Wednesday. Right.
Until the MAC gets going.
Well, yeah, MAC and on Tuesdays for the most part, and Wednesday. So.
And Chris comments that the back-to-back games would just be better. My big retort to that, and we are a little spoiled on the West Coast because I've always told people West Coast, best coast.
Exactly.
Especially if you're a sports fan, because football starts at 10 a.m. So you're not waiting throughout the entire morning. You're not waiting till the afternoon for football to start. And it doesn't end late. Like for us, we bowl our NFL bowling league, and Sunday Night Football is done before we get done bowling, and we're done bowling by 9.
Right.
So you're not up forever. I want to say that Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, because of a certain situation that happened that kind of stopped the game for a while, but I don't think that game got done till like 9:30.
Right.
It was a late ending game. So now it's past midnight if you're on the East Coast. So I think it gets even worse where if you wait for one game to basically be done before you switch over, yes, you get a lot more football on Monday, but you can't switch through all the commercials and do other stuff. And, everyone in the world now has the ADHD brain where it's squirrel. That's why Red Zone is so amazing, because it just, there's no action here. Let's show you action. So I do like having both games at the same time, so you can at least flip around for action. And they split it out enough. And then, of course, with what happened with Nick Chubb, and we'll get into that, it spread it out even more, where it felt like the Saints and Panthers were finishing up right as Cleveland and Pittsburgh were starting the third quarter. So you can watch the main parts of it. I really like it. I didn't really get to experience it as well as I would hope because obviously I don't have cable, so I can watch the ABC broadcast, which was the game I wanted to watch anyways. But now that we've got internet in the house today, now I can get back to my streaming stuff, and then I can bounce back and forth, and it'll be great. I would much rather have 2 games on Monday than a game on Thursday. I mean, Prime would disagree with the billions of dollars that they spent on it, but
it depends on even if you get it. I'm in the other side. I've stayed away from Prime. The only reason why, if I was on Prime, I'd be ordering stuff.
Right.
And so it's been nice where I can't watch it. But, even the idea of purchasing the YouTube part now is crazy expensive to.
Yeah, I'm still upset. I goofed up I get a discount because I'm a student.
Right.
But then don't sign up with your student email because your student email doesn't allow for payment, which was fine when it was on DirecTV because they just asked for your debit card.
Right.
YouTube is owned by Google. Google wants everything to run through Google, including Google Pay, which then my email cannot use Google Pay.
Right.
But I cannot switch my student verification to another email now that I've already claimed it. So I hose myself out of that fantastic deal. Still a little butthurt about it, but we'll see how YouTube does, or if the numbers are really good for that with the whole Sunday ticket and stuff. But I do like the NFL kind of exploring these options. Hopefully it becomes a thing. I have no problem with it being year round where you have the 2 games. It does get a little iffy for us and us doing our power rankings and trying to get everyone put in afterwards. It seemed like Chris was watching a little bit later, so I got his a little late. He was totally fine, and it wasn't like midnight or anything when I got him, but it does kind of push things back when now you have 4 teams that you're waiting for blurbs from instead of being able to get them in early. But that's just
that was me.
That's our issue.
Commercial breaks, that's what I was doing for the first one. I was sitting there at the desk and all right, let's go ahead and type the ones I was doing. So
we can skip New Orleans, Carolina. It was a nothing game. New Orleans wins at 20-17. Both quarterbacks stunk.
Yeah, it was.
Jamal Williams left with a hamstring injury. So Taysom Hill was your leading rusher the entire game. It was just it was a mess. Once Pittsburgh Cleveland started, I don't know if I even really cared. I looked at the score every so often just to see where it was at, but I had no interest in it whatsoever. And of course, the big news that did go down in that Pittsburgh Cleveland game was Nick Chubb with an ugly injury. Obviously, I mean, we don't show clips anyways because we don't have the rights to it, and I don't want to figure out how much it would cost for us to be able to show clips. So it's nothing I even care about. But even if we could show you clips, that's a clip I would not show to people.
I didn't see it live, and I'm kind of glad listening to Scott Van Pelt last night. I'm glad that they didn't reshow it. So
it's bad.
Just listening to him talk about it, it was like, okay, that's enough. I really don't want to see it. And so
I found it on Twitter. I regret that I found it on Twitter. But it's bad. It's a bad knee injury, and
it's kind of the same as what he had when he was at Georgia. So
this could be worse.
This could easily be, from the ones I'm hearing, could be the one that finally says, you're done.
Yeah.
It just sucks,
I did like what Rich Eisen said, that at least Nick Chubb got his contract.
Yeah.
But this does hurt the argument for running backs trying to get paid, but it's also the reason why they want to get paid, because their career can end.
Well, especially after the article that came out yesterday that the union thought that the running backs were faking injuries. That's the whole part of the suit that's between the union and NFL.
Could get ugly.
It's going to get real ugly.
It could definitely get ugly. Kenny Pickett, I was not impressed with. I haven't been either of these 2 games. I know a lot of people were thinking that he was going to take that step forward. Still waiting for it. I'm not saying he can't. As somebody that has constantly had a new quarterback on our team, like, you want to give them time to grow. So I'm not saying his career is never going to take off. It just has not yet. But Deshaun Watson, man, he is not looking good. He looks like he's all over the place. And I'm just going to ask you straight up, as a Baltimore Ravens fan, are you scared of either of these 2 teams right now?
Not right now, but not to dive away from that really fast, because I'm thinking about it. And you said his name, Deshaun Watson. he made a couple of bonehead penalties last night that were just unbelievable and not to the point of what they should be.
If you were to look up all-time bonehead plays,
I got the soundboard going. I just had to turn it on.
Yeah,
there's too many buttons over here.
Well, heck, we got a producer sitting in the other room. Maybe we can hire him to work.
Man,
a couple hours.
So,
no, but
too old for this.
Deshaun made a couple of really silly mistakes. You know, the third and manageable, then ends up getting a personal foul penalty.
He had two face
penalties. I mean, just some. You're not better than everybody else, but trying to prove that you can do it. Just go out and play your game and keep your team in it. But I'm not scared right now. It just doesn't seem.
And then Cincinnati right now is just a mess.
And as far as NFC North, you know, we look decent, but
AFC North.
AFC North. We look decent, but there's always a but. You know, when Joe Burrow is one of those people that's going to turn it around. You know,
you got to think so.
Joe Mixon.
And we'll talk about that here shortly because we'll break down some of the power rankings. Those got posted on our Facebook page earlier today, and it just continues. It's fun having 8 different views on 32 teams because they are all over the place right now. I had so much fun putting them in going, why? What am I not seeing that some of these other people are seeing? And it made me laugh because I only had 3 of ours in early, and we're waiting for everyone else to get them in. And I was putting them in, and we're all over the map on most of these teams. Just the 3 of us that I had in, and then the Buccaneers we all had in the exact same spot, just randomly. Like I don't think there was another team outside the top 5 or maybe the bottom 5 that we were really close on. All 3 of us, we always had one outlier, and then the Buccaneers all. What was it? 18.
I was pulling mine up right now. So,
yeah, I forget where the Buccaneers were. I'm trying to follow the thing. I think it was the Buccaneers. Maybe it was
18. Yeah, we had an 18. That's where I had them.
But no, it was the Browns. We all had them at 14. That's what it was. It wasn't the Buccaneers. It's the Browns. My memory is garbage. But yeah, we'll get into that here shortly. But we'll bounce around a couple of sports, keep it a little bit fresh as we move on to Major League Baseball, and only a couple of weeks left in the regular season. A couple teams have already clinched things up. Braves have clinched the NL East. Dodgers have already clinched the NL West. They both have just run away with their divisions. Baltimore and Tampa Bay have both clinched playoff spots, but are battling it out for the East. Houston right now with a 1.5 game lead over Seattle and Texas. Big question there is, are either of those 2 teams finally going to be able to dethrone the Astros this year?
I sure hope so, but it's been a up and down roller coaster over the last few weeks, and what your team did to Houston, and I'll thank you again, but
you're welcome.
But now again, they're back to that 1 game lead. Texas, on the other hand, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with that team.
They win 5 straight games and they lose 5 straight games, and so on and so forth, and it's just absolutely a mess. They're a complete mess. They might be the team I would want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you look at what Seattle did. I mean, they ran into a buzzsaw this week with facing the Dodgers and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, what those guys did. So I think it's going to roll down to the very last week.
For sure. Maybe that last week. And again, Seattle, their last 10 games are against either Texas or Houston. Yep. So it'll really all come down to that. The other 2 divisions are getting close to being wrapped up. Minnesota's magic number is down to 5 coming into today. Milwaukee was down to 7. But it's all eyes on wild card right now. Yeah. And while I was not a big fan at first of them expanding the playoffs a year or 2 ago, it really has worked out, and things are really opening up. The teams at the top are still having something to fight for because you're either trying to get a bye, so you're not having to play the wild card round, or at least home field advantage, and that's where the Braves and Dodgers are sitting right now trying to battle for that. But it really matters not only to win your division, but not be the worst division winner. But right now, wild cards, Toronto has a 1 game lead over both Seattle and Texas, who are tied for that last spot. It's really between those 3 teams. I think obviously Tampa Bay has already locked in their spot. Houston, if they go on a tumble could get knocked out, and Seattle and Texas could both get in. But it's really between those 3 teams. And then the National League is so fun. Philadelphia is 4 games clear of everybody right now. Arizona just a half game up of both the Cubs and the Reds, who are tied for the last wild card spot. Then the Marlins are a half game out. San Francisco is 2 games out. So that's a complete mess. And you want to talk about coming down to the final day. I think the National League wild card is going to be one where ESPN or Fox or whoever is going to be able to get things set up are going to have some kind of multi-screened thing where all the games are happening at the same time. Tune in here and see what happens.
So my question I'm going to pose to you, and with all this, and you rattled off some things with all of these wildcard games, and there's so many that could fit in there. So many things can happen over the next 2 weeks.
Right.
Do you put all of your chips in on the 2 biggest teams, 3 biggest teams in the Dodgers, the Orioles, and
the Braves?
The Braves.
I don't know if I put
the championship.
I don't know if I put the Orioles in that. I think them and the Rays are too close.
Right.
I think it's a 3-horse race on favorites in the American League to make it to the World Series. You have to add Houston in there. Their pedigree is too great. I do think that they are going to win the West now. I mean, Seattle and Texas both had their shots, and they have both missed. And the Astros are going to make it, and they are starting to roll a little bit. As I say that, Baltimore had a crazy 3-run home run to beat them last night in the 9th inning, and Baltimore winning right now. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But playoffs are a different thing. So I think it's the Rays, Baltimore, and Houston are the ones. If it's anyone but those 3 as the AL representation in the World Series, I'd be shocked. And it's Atlanta and the Dodgers. I can't think of another team that can go on a run. That's the beauty of baseball, though, is you get hot at the right time and any team can go. We saw that with the Phillies last year, where they snuck into the playoffs, and next thing you know, they were in the World Series. But Atlanta is just too deep. The Dodgers are really starting to find their groove. The Dodgers are finding pitching everywhere. They have a young kid who's pitching tonight, Ryan Pepio, who's been ridiculously good. He's coming off. They're gonna have a what's the old Tampa Bay thing? The leadoff pitcher, the opener. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, the opener.
So they're trying to just save arms at this point. So yeah, I think it's between those 5 teams to win the World Series.
Yeah. So then the other question is, how much longer? And we go there, and this team has so much talent.
Right.
What do you think happens if San Diego does not make the playoffs?
Well, reports have come out over the last few days. Manny Machado might get shut down. He's been dealing with an elbow injury. He was a DH yesterday.
Right.
He's out of the lineup today. The surgery that he is going to need on his elbow is going to take like 8 months. So if he does have it, he's going to miss part of the beginning of next year, and they may start moving people off. From all of the reports that you hear, it's a very toxic, rough locker room. Like, they have a ton of talent, but none of it meshes. So I think the Padres went all in. They did not form a team. They just formed a bunch of individual talent. And it shows, and it shows every year in baseball. And that's why I always laugh at people that go, oh, the Yankees are winning or buying championships. No, Yankees are just spending a ton of money. But none of that has ever resulted in championships.
Could we say that over the past 3 years, do we think the Padres are probably the biggest miss?
The Mets would like you to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Because they spend even more than the Padres, and they miss every year, too. Padres were the most disappointing. I was really, really excited about them. Their offense is still exciting. Anybody on that team could hit a home run at any point, but they just have not been able to mesh at all. So, like I said, it's down to 5 teams to me for the World Series, but that's what I love about baseball is can the Cubs get hot and all of a sudden go on some magical run? You never know. The Reds are right there. It'd be really cool to see Ellie De La Cruz have some ridiculous October moments in his rookie year. So a lot going on. And real quick, before we move on, let's look at your scoreboard so far. Tampa Bay got another big win. They beat the Angels 6-2. Washington over the White Sox 4-3. I need to look at my White Sox and 100 loss bet. I don't know. Can you look that up real quick to see where they're at? Because I've not been paying attention. I'll tell you that right now. Going on right now, Minnesota with a 7-0 lead over Cincinnati. That's a big one there. That's top of the 8th inning. Mets and Marlins tied at 3, but the Marlins have runners at 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs, bottom of the 9th inning. So we'll see how that goes. Toronto with a 4-1 lead over the Yankees going to the bottom of the 8th. Atlanta crushing Philadelphia 9-3, bottom of the 7th. So there's a lot of NL wildcards right now that are losing. That just makes it even more fun. Kansas City with a 7-2 lead over the Guardians in the 6th. Cubs have jumped out early. 2-0 lead over the Pirates, bottom of the 1st. Milwaukee up 5-2 over the Cardinals in the bottom of the 5th inning now. Boston over Texas 3-1 in the 5th, and Baltimore over Houston 5-3 also in the 5th inning. Still to come, Seattle gets to finish off with Oakland here soon. Colorado and San Diego, San Francisco, Arizona, and Detroit, and the Dodgers.
All right, so your Chicago White Sox have lost 6 of their last 9. So they have 94 losses.
Ooh.
10 games remain.
Oh, I like my chances.
Tomorrow against Washington, a 3-game set at Boston, at home against Arizona, and then 3 at home against San Diego.
I like my chances. That was a big bet that I threw out there because their record when I said that they were going to hit 100 losses was far better than that. So they have completely imploded, and you love to see it.
The things
listen. I told Oren in one of our posts where he's like, "Oh, do you need a third member?" Because he was doing really good in his NFL picks. He's like, "No, we get most of our picks wrong, and that's what makes it entertaining. Is we spout off junk, and then we laugh about it 6 months later when we go back and look. We're going to go back and look at our predictions in Major League Baseball." Spoilers, neither of our World Series teams are even going to sniff the playoffs. So there you go there.
My team, I don't think, has been mathematically eliminated yet.
Yeah. Well, my team's ahead of yours. So obviously, there you go. Let's move on to the NFL real quick again, and then we'll get into these power rankings. But actually, let's do the power rankings first. Because I think the next topic really kind of lends itself to it. So I'm going to have to hide chat. So you're up to,
all right.
You're in charge of telling me if anybody comments, but I need to be able to see the whole board. You have been able to look at the overall power rankings, and that's what I really like doing. Is there's 8 of us, and I'm the only one that gets to know.
Yeah,
where everything gets to go. So you guys have to then look on Tuesday to see where things finish. What really stood out to you as surprising? Because I'll tell you the one that jumped out to me again. The first 3 that I got in, we all had Cleveland at 14th, just to show you how weird things got.
I did not have Cleveland at 14th.
I know, but listen, they finished 10th in our power rankings. None of you were the highest on them at 11. It just shows you how diverse some of the other picks were, where the average for the Browns was at 13.5, and that was 10th best.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think for me, and I'm looking here, I had them down a little bit, but even with the loss to Seattle, we're still holding a very high standard for what Detroit can do. I like that. I think we have them at 9 right now, 1-1. But again, we're that same thing. I felt it took me. I had my top, I had my bottom,
and then the middle is a mess.
That middle stuff was just so. And I had 2-0 teams a lot farther down below some of those 1-1s.
Yeah, and of course, and I know Jesse Knight was giving us crap. He was like, but that's the whole point of power rankings. It's not the standings, and some teams they could be 2-0. Like I still don't buy in the Buccaneers. I have them 21st. There were 2 people that put them in the top 10. That was a big spread for us. The Buccaneers, the highest was 10th, the lowest was 27th.
All right.
Just again, it's just what you believe in and what you don't. The Lions was pretty close for all of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us had them at exactly 10th. You and I both were there. Sean was at 11th. Kennedy was at 13th. And then Eric dropped them down to 18th. Interesting. And I want to get your perspective on this. The New York Jets. They finished 12th on our overall power rankings this week. 3 of you still have them in the top 10, and I need to know why.
I kept them at 9th just because I like what that defense was doing.
I did not against the Cowboys.
Well, we're talking about Cowboys. The Cowboys have played.
The Cowboys are good.
I moved the Cowboys up in my power rankings.
The Jets defense should have been able to contend with them, and they did not defensively.
Yeah, I like what Sauce is doing. He was highly active in that game.
Can I do one quick plea?
Sure.
Quick homer plea?
Okay.
Sauce is so good. Stop putting him on one side of the field.
Yeah.
He should have been on CeeDee Lamb that whole game. Instead, they were able to go, all right, CeeDee's in the slot. So now he's not even being guarded by our best 2 cornerbacks. He's being guarded by a linebacker. And he just torched him. It's just, if Sauce is that good, and I believe he is, we need to
put him on the number 1.
Make him an island.
Yep.
And shut down. You are shutting him down. You were putting their number 1 on an island. You can't do that next week because the Patriots don't have a number 1 or a number 2 or a number 3. Their wide receivers are garbage. But if there's a good wide receiver, put him out there. He's good enough.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. It's Chris puts up there. I'm high on the Jets for the same reasons. The Rams high. I'm dropping the team a lot. If they lose to San Francisco or Dallas.
And I get it with the Rams. We had the Rams 15th. Chris had them all the way up to 7th. And Kennedy and Zach both had them as low as 24th. I had them 16th, kind of right in the middle, just because I'm still not 100% sold on the Rams, but I didn't knock them down really because of the 49ers game. I might have moved them up a spot or 2, to be honest, because the 49ers are really, really good.
I want to know if everybody had Atlanta. Where Atlanta? Atlanta has been that team that's been. I struggle with this one. When I first put them in my rankings, I had them down at like 16, 17.
Right. Yeah.
And I slowly moved them up. Thought about this. Moved it around. That was the one that I think was the most difficult, and also Washington. I mean,
yeah, Washington surprised me with how low some people had that team, Atlanta. For you, Zach, who is a Falcons fan, and I flipped him crap because he told me he was going to put him in the top 5 during the Monday Night Football games. He lowered it down. He put him 8th. Sean was 9th. I was 11th. You were 12th.
Well, 12.
But Kennedy still had the Falcons at 22. Eric had him at 23. So that's what I love about this. It's just so different. The Commanders. I thought maybe I was completely wrong about them when I saw you guys bring in yours, because I always do mine first because I don't want to be influenced by anybody. But then I'm starting to see like ESPN and CBS come out with theirs, and I'm like, okay, at least some of these other publications like them as much as I do. I think Colin had them 10th on his big board, but I had them 12th. Sean had them 15th, and then we go down. Kennedy still has them 30th. Eric has them 26. Zach also had them 26. So, like, these were all coming in. I'm like, am I seeing a different game than everyone else? Am I the one that's off or what? So, again, we will see. They have a really tough game against Buffalo next week. We finally had a third team come in as somebody that put them at 32. It's always been, Texans and Cardinals, right. But Harry put the Bears at 32 this week. So a little bit different there.
I had them at 30th, if I remember. I still think, I still, as much as CJ Stroud has played, Arizona by far still got my bottom pick.
Most of us do have San Francisco first. 6 of the 8 of us had them 1. Kennedy had the Chiefs 1, and Harry had the Eagles 1. Just, again, some differences there. And again, I'm looking over here real quick at just the spread. I need to make another column so I can see these easier between the high and the low. And the Chargers are another one. They have been off to a slow start. Kennedy still believes in them. She has them at 9th. Zach has them all the way down at 22nd. That's another really big spread.
I had them at 19.
Giants, high of 18, low of 31. So yeah, that's what I love about this. But there you go. I mean, Chris has the Chiefs 11th. So we have them first and 11th in polls. So
Chris
that's why I have fun with it.
So Chris does bring up a good point. How much credit can you give the Commanders by beating Denver and Arizona in close games? Good point.
While it's a good point, I don't think Denver should have been a close game.
No,
they let that slip away. But I'm just liking pieces of it. That defense continues to improve. Sam Howell is fine, but Brian Robinson continues to make plays in the backfield. I'm just liking those pieces on this team.
Sweat was my defensive player of the week last week. So,
and it doesn't matter. This is not college football. It doesn't matter by how much you win the game. You just got to win the game.
Right.
And the fact that they did not blow that game and it took a Hail Mary to make it a 2-point game, they're out there winning the games that they need to win. It's the same thing with the Eagles. They jumped out on Minnesota. The Vikings made a big comeback and made it look like a closer game than it really was. And everyone on Friday are going, oh, what's wrong with the Eagles? They barely beat the Vikings. No, they blew the doors off them for a while, and then they just kind of took their foot off the gas a bit, and Minnesota made some adjustments, and that's football for you. There's a reason why, for the most part, Vegas puts lines from 3 to 5. Even though, the Jets were 9, I think, because they're spread with Zach Wilson and stuff, and that did end up higher than that. But a lot of times, this team should win, so we're putting the line at 6. So, I mean, games are going to end up closer than you think.
I've noticed that this year so far, ESPN has put a lot more half points past the 7.5. So they're wanting to make sure you force a pick more than a touchdown. So
real quick, out of those 4 teams that I put in our notes, and we talked about them with our rankings and how different everyone has them in, there were 4 Super Bowl contenders in the AFC that are off to a bit of slow starts. Who do you believe in the most, and who do you believe in the least between Cincinnati and the Chargers, who are both starting 0-2? And then I threw in there Kansas City, because yes, they're 1-1, but they've only scored 37 points so far. That's not very Chief-like. And Jacksonville, who did lose to Kansas City in that contest, they're 1-1, and their point differential is only 2 so far. So who do you believe in the most, and who do you believe in the least in those 4 teams?
I think for me, I believe in more of what Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey can do. Yes, Kelsey not playing first week. Chris Jones doesn't play first week. He makes a big impact this weekend. So for me, I think Kansas City is the one I believe in the most.
Right.
As far as the other ones, I'm scared for Cincinnati.
Okay.
Defensively, they just have not. I don't think have produced enough to slow teams down, and it's just going to be a little scary.
I'm with you as far as not worrying about the Chiefs at all. I'm actually more impressed with them right now because that defense is legit. Right, what they did in the red zone against the Jaguars on Sunday was really, really impressive. That offense will start clicking. Things will work. Mahomes will be fine. Travis Kelce will get more healthy, and he'll be the backbone of that offense. I would like to see them run the ball more, especially with some of the drops that are going on in the receiving core. Why not run the ball with Pacheco, who has done pretty darn good to start the year?
I say it didn't look near as bad. Where we were watching the other day, they were all excited when Tony caught a pass the very first.
Oh man, it's been an absolute mess. But the team I'm worried about is the Chargers, because that offense is great, but that defense is garbage, and Brandon Staley still cannot coach an end of a game to save his life. I do worry a bit about Cincinnati, and I totally understand why some people in our rankings had them as low as 20. But and because Joe Burrow's injury is worrisome, that it's not going to get better. And this could be one of those years where a contender who's been around for years just has an off year. And that could be Cincinnati. But for the Chargers, what else can they do offensively? Now, Eckler could be out for a little bit, but Herbert's looked good. The offense is doing their job. The defense isn't. And then you get in this close game, and then they just don't play it correctly because I don't think the coaching staff is competent enough to do so. So that's a team I'm really worried about.
And the other point, though, too, is Cincinnati's only put up 27 points, too.
Yeah.
So with Joe Burrow not being out there playing 100%, but he's got to find those connections.
To be fair to Cincinnati, but it does hurt them more. They've played 2 division games.
Right.
So those are going to be lower scoring games, especially against the Ravens and the Browns, who both have pretty good defenses. But as a counter to my own point, they're 0-2 and 0-2 in the division already. That's a big 0-2 for them to try to bounce back from. Real quick, we talked about Aaron Rodgers and his injury, and that became the big topic over the last week. So we'll just kind of hit on it here. Just should the NFL go to all grass fields?
100%. I don't understand why we haven't. I mean, you're looking at what these things are doing, blowing out knees, blowing quads. It's just, I don't know. I don't think it's the same. Here's the thing. I think things are a lot better than what they have been in the past. It's not like the original Astrodome when they came out, and these things are just finally getting designed. We're talking stuff now that is been proven, worked, and so why can't we make this thing a little bit better? It makes you wonder, are they not putting enough? So, there's a lot of sand and dirt underneath.
And all the pellets and stuff.
You would think, what are the pellets doing? That's what I want to know.
Some kind of bounce or something, or who knows what. But it's not the pellets that are the issue. It's just that it feels like cleats are sticking better to the turf, which in a way is great because you can cut and do all these things on turf that you can't really do on grass. But that's also the problem, is that cleat is sticking
and
to the turf, and then you get caught, and that's what happened with Aaron Rodgers. Is his foot was stuck to the turf, so his foot stayed planted flat, and then everything kind of tore as his leg was going at an angle. To counter that, though, Nick Chubb and his injury, I was on grass. So he did not get injured because of the turf, but it's just an interesting thing. And like, I totally get high schools going to turf or some colleges using turf because it is cheaper to maintain. You just put it out there and lay it out, and then it's totally fine. You don't really have to maintain it as much, and it lasts longer, and you don't have to worry about all these different long-term costs. I know it sounds like Lewiston, when they finally get their football field going, which every time I talk to somebody, oh yeah, we're going to break ground soon. And it's been 1.5 years since I've heard that. But when they do, it does sound like they are going to go to turf, and you kind of worry about the kids' knees and injuries. But again, I get the cost saving effort going into that, but it's the NFL. You make billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I think I saw an article the other day that said it would take $6 million for all 32 teams to just put grass in their fields. Just $6 million to the NFL to just take care of all of that. But the big issue is when you have turf, you can roll that turf out or cover it very easily and then do other things in your stadium. You put grass in there unless you have the cool setup like Arizona does. And I think the Raiders have that same setup where you put your grass on wheels and you roll the thing out. And then you can use your stadium there differently. But I've seen interesting ways to cover that stuff. When I went to WrestleMania 19, which was 20 years ago now, it was at Safeco Field a week or two before Major League Baseball started, and they just had these risers that protected the grass underneath it. And it was just these platforms, and then they took care of it underneath it, and it didn't damage it at all. And like I said, a week later, the Mariners are playing baseball there. So there's ways around it. It might cost a little bit more, but you don't need to be saving money. You're making billions and billions of dollars, and all you have to do is make Fox pay a little bit more.
Yeah, and the other part is you think about that. I thought about this too. Is we heard all of the changes, when the players went over to England and the issues with Wembley Stadium and all that, and you look at some of the folks that take care of these grass fields. Joe Smith over here thinks that it should be a little bit higher, and this would be. So how would you, if you were to get the NFL to say, hey, here we go, we're giving $6 million, we're paying for all of the sod to be laid down. you've got to have some standards of how each of them are set
home
up.
field advantage.
You would think consistency wise.
If I am the home team and say your team is coming in and you're a speedy squad,
right?
I'm not cutting the grass all week. I'll let that grow, make it a little bit slower for you.
Right.
Exact opposite.
Yeah.
If I have my fast team, I'm cutting that thing low. That's the home field advantage for you. That's just what you get. Maybe I'll create some potholes in there. Just for fun.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, I know you and I've talked about this. There's one spot in Adams Field, and you get to that one spot, you run right. Yeah. You don't go left. I'm not going to say exactly where it's at because
nobody's listening to the show that cares. So,
but no, I mean it's that thing. You just get to where your consistency runs the other direction.
Right. No, I totally get it. But yes, I want grass out there in all 32 fields. I think it's just safer that way. One thing that was really interesting to me, and who knows if it's true, but I have seen different reports over this week. David Bakhtiari, the offensive lineman for the Green Bay Packers, did not play this week. He's had knee injuries throughout his career and has missed a lot of time. But now there's a report, and they asked his head coach straight up about it. Is Bakhtiari going to play on turf this year? And he kind of dodged the question a little bit. So there's a chance that Bakhtiari is basically going, I'm banged up, and if we're playing on turf, my knee really hurts, so I'm not playing this week to avoid the turf. And he was very outspoken when Aaron Rodgers went down, and obviously they're boys.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be kind of crazy to think about if they were to converse and to take all this and get away with some of those bright fields that we see all the time that make it so nice and pretty on TV. I laughed last night. I don't know if you stayed on after listening after the final game there last night. No. Scott Van Pelt and his buddy were talking about the red field of Eastern Washington University,
the worst field in all of football,
and they're talking about, oh, don't worry, he's not on fire. It's just a red field.
It's just, I hate that field. It looks so bad on television.
Can you imagine if they get the real stuff and they start painting them? That would
get slick. We saw that in the Super Bowl, and then it gets all messy. So there you go. Let's move on to our NFL weekly awards. I'll start first with my offensive player of the week. Got to see a little bit of this while we bowled on Sunday, but Raheem Mostert for Miami, absolutely phenomenal. 18 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was between him and the other guy, and that's Mike Evans. I'm taking Mike Evans, what he did, big 70-yard pass completion, but he went 6 receptions for 171 and a touchdown.
Defensive player of the week. I watched too much of this guy. Micah Parsons. Just give him the defensive player of the year award right now. Edge rusher for the Cowboys. Just made Zach Wilson's life even worse than it already was. 2 sacks. How about 20.7% of the plays that he rushed, he created pressure on the quarterback. Also forced a fumble and recovered it. Nearly scored on that play, but a Jets lineman barely touched knees with him while he was getting up, so they counted him as down. He was all over the place. I don't know how many times I yelled at my screen on Sunday, where is the tight end and or running back to chip block this dude? Poor Dwayne Brown, who's 98 years old, was left on an island, speaking of islands with Jets, was left on an island one-on-one with Micah Parsons half the game. And every time Micah Parsons went, bye, and ran right by. And then once they started bringing somebody over there, they went, okay, we'll move Parsons to the middle of the defensive line, and he'll just run right through everybody. Dude is unstoppable.
Yeah, he's going to be a great player. I'm going to go with the guy that made a big influence just to start the game, but then he ended up having a huge game too. That's Alex Highsmith, linebacker for Pittsburgh. Very first play, Watson throws the ball and it gets tipped right into him. He goes in for a score.
Right.
He ends up with 7 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble, including pick 6 there. So good week for him.
Yeah, there you go. With those, your Thursday night football game is the New York Giants at the San Francisco 49ers. To give you some prediction or some evidence or some hints as to where we are going with our picks, San Francisco was number 1 in our power rankings. The Giants were 26th. 49ers at home. Home team on Thursday night. Give me San Francisco.
Yeah.
I took San Francisco. You can't take them.
I have to.
I already claimed them. And I took the Giants as my loser pick. I'm going to continue this trend the whole year because I'm already out of it.
I'm gonna have a bold pick right here.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey has 250 yards all-purpose.
I'm down. I'm down for that. My fantasy team thanks you.
Yeah, 250. I think he runs all over these guys, and now with Saquon not going to be he's out for 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks. They're saying I don't think
it could be ugly pretty quick. Yeah. Real quick, let's touch on the big college football game that blew up ESPN. It was their best rated game that late on a Saturday ever. Colorado and Colorado State. They had all of the chippiness going on with the head coach saying, I take my sunglasses and hat off to speak to adults, and Dion is not going to take any of that, and fought back, and it went out there on the field. There was like horrible blocks, the blatant targeting on Travis Hunter, and he's not going to be out for a few weeks. It was just dirty, and I'm still shocked that there was no flag on that. But Colorado State led 28-17 in the fourth quarter. Colorado came back and tied it up, went into overtime, and then second overtime before the Buffaloes stayed undefeated. Before I get into the stats, Chris with another comment asking how many points would the Giants need to have for us to take the Giants? And he says he needs at least 20. That may not be enough. However, 20 could be fine because, again, the Eagles really were all over the Vikings early on, and then they let the score inch back. But, yeah, 20 might.
That's
22.
Seems,
give me 22, at least over 3 touchdowns.
I think it's got to be, and right now the line is 10 for San Francisco.
That's not enough.
That is not enough, and I'm definitely taking the over. Sign me up for the over 44 points.
And Giants or the 49ers might have that themselves.
That's what I think.
You just have to wonder if the Giants will score. They didn't score against the Cowboys. They didn't score in the first half against Arizona before finally having the crazy comeback. Oh no, it'll be messy.
Sorry, I'm not taking your bet.
Right. Real quick though, we talk about the cheap hits in that Colorado State game. Obviously, anybody that's listening to this show are not in this group, but anybody out there sending death threats to Henry Blackburn and his family for his hit on Travis Hunter can go do something I can't say on this radio station.
Yeah,
it's just disgusting. Like, was it a bad hit? Yes. Was he out there trying to injure him for many weeks? No, I don't think so. Just a heat of the moment kind of a thing. And either way, just stop it. Shedeur Sanders continues to be phenomenal, and if Colorado can have this magic run, you got to think he could be a front runner for the Heisman at this point. 38-47 for 348, 4 touchdowns and 1 pick. Xavier Weaver had 9 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. Michael Harrison had a couple of touchdown catches. Jimmy Horn Jr., 7 catches, 66 yards and a touchdown. That passing game is so much fun. But Colorado State, they only had like 5 people who catch the ball. Like, they're obviously not as deep as the Buffaloes. But how about these numbers for their receivers, all right? Torrey Horton had 16 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown. Lewis Brown IV, 10 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown. And Dallin Holker, 6 catches for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. So pretty good receivers there for the Rams that just were unable to get it done. But my question to you is the whole Cinderella story, or is the slipper about to get broke for these Buffaloes? Cool start. They do beat TCU to start the year. TCU was part of the national championship game. But I contest that the Horned Frogs only had 3 returning starters on their offense, and we're not the same team. They beat Nebraska. I don't think Nebraska's that good. And now Colorado State. Like, everyone's still all over Colorado, and it's a cool story, and Dion is on 60 Minutes and all these other things. our buddy Jim Madoff showed me a hilarious clip of Dion and Shannon Sharp in their interview. Dion's having a great time, but it's now at Oregon and then hosting USC over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think they get a wide open, eyes wide open kind of game against Oregon. It's going to be, it's going to be. I think they're going to be competitive.
Yeah,
I think they stay competitive in the remaining of their schedule, but going against Oregon and the talent they have is going to be interesting.
We'll talk about that.
So with this thrown out there, and Denise and I talked about this, is they play the Washington Cougars on November 18th.
Yeah.
I think that's Saturday. If there's still that dance, do you see the chance of maybe College Game Day?
Yeah, that
would be awesome.
It's the best chance for Washington State. Other than, is the Apple Cup Washington or Washington State this year?
I don't.
That would be the other one if Washington State is at least competitive, because I believe Washington's going to be in the playoff hunt
right
at that point. So that could be another chance for Washington State. By the way, could be the last chance for Washington State with them getting moved most likely to the Mountain West or the Pac West or whatever is going to happen to this team.
It is at Washington this year on the 25th.
So that one doesn't work. So yeah, it's Colorado.
And it won't be. Now I look, they have changed the game. It was never changed. It was Friday, November 17th. So, and it is
the Apple Cup
game.
The Apple Cup is always on a Friday.
Well, no, this year it is on a Saturday.
Oh, well, never mind. So it's a Colorado game that's on a Friday?
Yep, Colorado is on a Friday, November 17th.
Wow, they've messed that all up.
At 7:30. So no chance of College Game Day coming then.
No. Well, maybe they'll do a special Friday thing because everyone has to follow Colorado. Fox Big Noon's thing or whatever, we're still at Colorado, even though they're playing Colorado State. It's absurd. All right, let's bounce back to Major League Baseball real quick. My standout batter of the week was Bobby Witt Jr., shortstop for Kansas City. He was 9 of 20, 450 batting average, 6 runs, 4 RBIs, a home run, but the big one, 6 stolen bases on the week, 5 walks, just 1 K.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the guy that we were all on watching him. Was he going to do it? Could he do it? And Luis Arias, 12 of 27. I wish I could.
Decent, yeah.
I wish I could have done that. 7 runs, 4 home runs, 6 RBIs, and a stolen base. But it's good to see him back hitting the ball a little bit better than what he was.
And he's in the playoff hunt for sure.
Exactly.
My stand-up pitcher, Lucas Giolito for the Guardians, went 7 innings, gave up 2 hits, a walk, and struck out 12 in his victory. So he is my pitcher of the week.
I am going with a team that has gotten a little bit warmer. They've pushed their lead now to 6. I'm going to go with Devin Williams, the relief pitcher for Milwaukee. He had 4 games, 4 innings pitched. Got 3 saves out of the no hits, struck out 6, and only 1 walk.
Yeah, he's a really, really good pitcher. He struggled there for a little bit in the middle part of the year. Coming on strong as the Brewers look like they will be in the playoffs. Power rankings for me, I don't know if I changed a single. No, I moved the Dodgers back over the Orioles. So Braves, Dodgers, Orioles, Rays, Astros are my Power 5.
And I think you and I had the exact same.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I had Atlanta, Dodgers, Orioles, Rays, and Astros.
You are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here on LCWarriorRadio.com at LCWR. We are here in the studio on the Lewis Clark State campus. It is currently 66 degrees. Oh, that's bad. 66.6 degrees on the screen. It matches your series that you bowled on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just following you, I guess.
It's because I was picking on everybody.
Yeah.
I guess even giving our buddy, hats off to Wes. I mean, I felt bad for him. He's gonna do it. He's gonna beat me. But he wanted his first 200 game against me. And
he almost did.
Oh,
he almost called a shot years ago. He still got 1 more week against you later on this year. So, yes, R&R Sports Report. You can check us out audio only on LCWarriorRadio.com. You can check out the video version of the show on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Just search R&R Sports Report, and that is where you can comment along with Chris here this week. And also check out all our power rankings and our pick'ems and all the stuff that we do throughout the week. We appreciate all of the people that help us do all this stuff and all the people that comment along the way. But now it is time for the sports-related draft. And I'm on a little bit of a run here, Hagen.
I know.
I have won the last two.
You got a guy to change his vote.
Because he understood he made a mistake. I've won 4 of the last 5 that we've had a winner on. We had a tie for the NFL players who retired too soon. But I've won 4 of the last 5, 6 of the last 8. And I am now up 31 to 19.
I think you've manipulated.
I have not manipulated anything. I'm not even counting the first, 10 weeks where I won all of them. But you thought the judge was biased because the judge was me. So I'm not even counting those 10. It could be even worse. But this week, I got to pick the topic. And again, I went off of the Russell Wilson Hail Mary that got tipped around all over the place and looked like it could start this crazy comeback. But then no pass interference was called on the 2-point conversion, and the Broncos ended up losing. So we're going to do the greatest Hail Mary of all time. So I picked the topic. So Hagen, you get the first pick.
You know, the one that gets played all the time, and I'm going this way as much as a few would probably disagree a little bit, but I think it's got to be up there, easily top 1 or 2. And it's one that's overplayed all the time. And that's got to be Doug Flutie's Miracle in Miami.
Yeah.
Back in the mid-'80s in '84. Boston College was on their own 20-yard line. 28 seconds left. Able to make the ball, get the ball down to the 48 with 6 seconds left, and drops back. Flutie puts every bit of what that his 5'4" frame. Right. I mean, he's that tall. And I'm exaggerating there. I don't know exactly how tall he was, but all he could muster from he was standing at his 35, 36-yard line and gets that ball all the way down there. The ball goes through a few hands and falls right into Gerard Fallon's hands, and they end up winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent Hail Mary. I think it gets overplayed because of what Flutie was able to do in the NFL and kind of surpass expectations there as well. And it seemed like every time he was on a national game, they had to show the Hail Mary every game that he was a quarterback for. So we saw it all the time. For my first pick, to me, like, obviously there's some other Hail Marys that are out there that had bigger moments or in bigger situations, but I went with the one that just looked the best.
I remember where I was at when this Hail Mary happened.
And this one happens after a face mask gets called, which extends the game. And then Aaron Rodgers rolled around and threw one up. And you can still see it to this day when I think about it. It's like 9 players are at the back of the end zone getting themselves set. And here's Richard Rodgers, this tall tight end, just kind of hopping around as he moves close to the end zone. Everyone else is behind him. No one's near him as he kind of just snuck in there after all this and jumped up, made the catch in front of everybody. And it was like the easiest Hail Mary. It just beautifully played. And obviously I don't think it was how it was supposed to be executed, but Rodgers had to buy some time and had allowed Rodgers to even get down there. But you just watch it. It's just so beautiful. And it just works fantastically. And it was a day after Rodgers hits. It turned 32. And I think it was Rich Nance who was on the call. And he brings that up as he throws it off. Day after he turns 32. And then it's just beautiful. Just Rodgers to Rodgers. It was great.
Yeah, that was the big one. I was hoping that you weren't going to go that way.
Right.
Because I remember you have those moments of games that you watch or scenarios. You remember exactly where I remember I was sitting at a poker table in Laughlin, Nevada. And this place just that's the only game on. And this place just goes absolutely nuts to the point of you hear people playing on machines in the other room, just screaming and hollering in that place. And that was the loudest poker room that I have ever been in. But
I've also just realized that we only have one person commenting today, and your next pick is going to sway him in the wrong direction, and I don't like it.
Oh, that's Chris has got great taste. So for me, and this is another one of those moments. I remember where I was at.
Me too.
I was sitting and I had a meeting and finished up. I was had finished dinner, headed back to my room, sitting in a hotel room in Federal Way, Washington, Monday night football game.
Yeah, I was bowling.
2012. And it was all about the replacement referees.
Yes.
And it was about the referees and they needed to be paid and they needed to be taken care of and all that. And mine was a young Russell Wilson throwing it up to Mr. Golden Tate. Green Bay. It is the Hail Mary.
Yeah, because Golden Tate didn't catch this ball.
They taught it simultaneously.
No, they did not. I will fight this for the rest of the show.
They come down together with the ball, together.
No.
Holding it.
Okay. I want you to understand what holding it is. Okay, I want you to hold this water bottle. I'll open it, and you can only hold it with the side of one hand and tell me if you've caught this ball. Because Tate's other hand completely leaves the football, and his hand is just kind of there. Jennings has this ball the whole way. And by the way, the play stands. There was no play called. One referee said touchdown. The other one said interception.
That's exactly right.
And then they went, the play stands. There was never a call on the field.
Well, what's funny is you watch the video, and I remember watching it live in my hotel. You look at both of them stare at each other like they're gazing in each other's eyes. Who's going to make the call? You have one right away, and you can see them both blow their whistle, and then you got one touchdown, and then you get another one.
Right.
So
I'm already winning because you have a Hail Mary and an interception.
But it's still considered in NFL history. It's a completed catch.
Well, yes, because
so it is a Hail Mary.
But you know what? What was so great about the Hail Mary? It brought back the actual referees because the NFL went, oh my goodness, this is horrendous. What did we do?
2 days later, man, they got paid. Take care of them.
Because they called an interception a catch. It just
that was a young Russell Wilson. I mean, his third.
Well, yeah, it's 11 years ago.
Third game.
Anyways, my second pick. Let's go back to college football. 1994. Speaking of those Colorado Buffaloes, they were taking on the Michigan Wolverines. Buffalo scored with just over 2 minutes to go to cut the lead to 5. They're able to get the ball back. And what's so impressive about this one is Cordell Stewart, then later Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Colorado was on their own 3rd-yard line, which usually is too far. If you're at that point, at this point of the game, you're just trying to do the whole hook and ladder and do the lateral craziness like we saw the Saints do against the Jaguars several years ago. Own 36-yard line. Cordell Stewart threw this ball from his own 27. 73 yards. And if you go back and watch this play, if nobody was there, this is landing just inside the end zone. So he threw it at least 73 yards. Gets tipped up and caught by Michael Westbrook. And Colorado comes away with the win. This is the most impressive Hail Mary, just for the distance that Cordell Stewart gets it in that game.
Yeah. When you look at this one, it reminds me of the old challenges, the quarterback challenges when they did during the Pro Bowl. How far can you throw the ball, kind of thing. And I remember watching throws of Drew Bledsoe and those guys throwing the ball as far as they did. It was crazy. So, good pick. I like it
because it's a Hail Mary,
and I like that one. I'm going Homer with this next one. I know you don't think it's a Hail Mary.
Because it's not. If I could show this play to the people, I would. But I don't want to get claimed.
I almost went the other Hail Mary that was against us.
You mean an actual Hail Mary?
I almost went that way. But I'm going to go.
Talking about the Chad Johnson one?
It was AJ Green.
Oh, sorry. Cincinnati. Yeah. Chad Johnson was a different one. But yeah. I remember Cincinnati had 2 crazy Hail Marys in like back-to-back years.
Yeah, and one was AJ Green getting that one. You got to knock the ball away. Knock the ball away. Anyway, but I'm going to go one that actually got listed in a few different places I
Right.
read as a Hail Mary.
It's
And
not-
yes, and this led up to a lot of different things. It ended up going to the point of you're looking it up. I can see it. It's the
Mhm.
Mile High Miracle. It's Joe Flacco. I can't
Right.
believe I'm going Joe Flacco though. But I mean, anyway, Joe
You're
Flacco.
wacko for Flacco, I know.
Third and 3, Baltimore trailed Peyton Manning, and he completes a 70-yard touchdown pass to Jacoby Jones.
Completed a pass.
And in it's considered one. It's considered a Hail Mary. Anyway, ties the game up, and then Justin Tucker ends up kicking a huge 47-yard field goal to knock them off, and then the next 2 games. Baltimore comes away with
That's great.
a huge another championship. So second,
But it's
Jacoby
not a Hail
Jones.
Mary. It's a long pass. You want to know 2 reasons why it's not a Hail Mary?
we talked about the one because we didn't even pick this one that goes in there.
But do you want to know why this is not a Hail Mary?
You're going to tell me.
It's a one-on-one situation where the wide receiver got behind the defender, so it's just a throw. And there was still 42 seconds left. A Hail Mary is last gasp, throw it up, just hoping that it gets down. I would give you, even though I don't consider it a Hail Mary, Brett Favre with Minnesota. I saw that on a bunch of lists where he rolled around and then found a tight end at the back of the end zone, but that was still a normal play. A Hail Mary is everyone just groups up in one area, you throw it up, you say a prayer, you do your little Hail Mary thing. That's where the name came from. And you hope the right team comes down with it.
But
that is not what yours was at all.
But with that said, though, where this phrase comes from, Drew Pearson still caught the ball with time left, and he wasn't anywhere close to the end zone. He still had 5 yards.
And is it on our list?
And it is considered the name of Hail Mary.
Yeah, because somebody said it on there, but that's not what a Hail Mary is. It's not.
I'm trying to remember who the guy was that coined it, Hail Mary. It was during Roger Staubach.
I'm just disappointed in you. Like, it's just really, really sad that you just have thrown a completion and an interception on your Hail Mary list. My last one, let's go all the way back to 1980. The 1980 Holiday Bowl, BYU versus SMU. BYU trailed by 20 points with 3:57 to go. Jim McMahon gets a couple of touchdown passes in there to cut it to 6. They block a punt with 13 seconds to go and then throw a Hail Mary into a big group of people, and BYU wins their first ever bowl game. It's a Hail Mary at the end. Not a long catch.
Not a long catch. Trying to find who it was that made that call.
I don't know. You figure it out while I win this. It's over.
So
I win the sports-related draft.
Review who it was.
So I have 3 Hail Marys. My Hail Marys are the Miracle in Motown, Rogers to Rogers, Cordell Stewart for the Colorado Buffaloes against Michigan in 1994, and Jim McMahon for BYU against SMU in the 1980 Holiday Bowl. Hagen has 1 Hail Mary, the Flutie's Miracle in Miami. He has an interception with a Fail Mary, and he has a catch.
It was actually Roger Staubach that said that.
Is Zach Wilson, the Garrett Wilson on Sunday, considered a Hail Mary to you?
Wilson to Wilson?
Yeah. Where he went 70 yards?
No.
Well, they're the same thing.
No.
Same thing. The Mile High Miracle wasn't even a miracle. It was just a good throw and terrible defense. Stop putting miracle on the end of everything, people.
We came away with a championship. That's all that matters.
Not because of a Hail Mary.
How many you got? 1.
Huh?
How many you got?
What, Super Bowls? We're going on that now? I wasn't even alive for mine. How many World Series you got? Let's go there. Let's count championships for the teams that we follow. I win. This is where our show is broken down to.
Or we're getting
That is also my least favorite argument that people will do. Well, you're a such and such fan, so you don't know sports.
I'm still bitter.
Those people that say that, by the way, are trying to say that bandwagon fans are the smartest fans. That's what they say, and it just drives me absolutely up the wall.
I still, I love '95. We knocked off the New York Yankees out of the playoffs, and then we lost to Cleveland. So I mean, but then 2001, 116, and then then you're out.
Yeah, and I don't even brag about that one because then the Yankees lost in the World Series, the greatest World Series of all time, but the Yankees lost it. All right, let's move on to some local events. Look at your high school scores real quick. Clarkson was pretty good against East Valley, 151-26.
Yeah, huge. Another big showing for Carter Steinwad, 360 plus. And then he had a couple of rushing touchdowns on top of it. This kid is looking good.
Right.
Shout out to him. He was on another recruiting mission this last week. He spent a little time over at University of Montana.
There you go.
So excited to see where this boy ends up settling down at. But another huge day for Riken Kraber. He could easily be breaking some of these school records. Like he did the one. Right. He's got a chance of breaking another one here pretty soon.
He was absolutely great in the Lewis and Clarkson game a couple weeks ago. Speaking of Lewiston, they took care of the Buckaroos of Pendleton, 39-12. Pullman beat North Central 35-7. That game was called early. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Timberlake took care of Moscow 38-28. Potlatch continues to have a fantastic season. They beat Derry 60-12. Coeur d'Alene starting to right the ship. They took care of Lakeland 54-0. Soton was unable to get the win against Manson. Manson wins that one 42-26. Pomeroy over Charlo 42-40 in double overtime. Our buddy Richie was sending me updates from that game. St. Mary's over Kellogg 30-18 to get their first win of the year, and Clearwater Valley just cannot get their season going. Lapway wins that one 42-18. How'd soccer go this week?
Well, the couple of games going on. First off, for Lewiston, they played Coeur d'Alene to a tie on Friday, the 1-1 tie. Lewiston's Allie Olson had 8 saves, and Malay Nee scored in the 20th minute for Lewiston. Last night's game against Moscow was canceled. So senior night this Thursday versus the Buckaroos at Walker Field, 4:30 if you're wanting to watch some girls soccer for Lewiston. Clarkson lost last Wednesday to a 4A school, University, and almost came back and won that one. 4-3 was the final score in that one. Rebecca Skinner, again, huge numbers, 2 goals, and also Sienna Newhouse. The Bantams played Pullman tonight as we were getting ready to go online here earlier. Right. It was at 5:30. Clarkson was leading 3-0 at halftime. Again, the same combo, Newhouse with a goal, Rebecca Skinner with 2, and just minutes before we went live, it was a final. Clarkson ends up winning 3-2 over the Greyhounds. Busy week, and we talked about this. The Bantams played Pullman tonight. Will host the next 3 games too. They'll take on Rogers on Thursday at 4, Saturday against Moscow at noon, and then Tuesday at against Shadle Park at 4. All of those games up at Lincoln Middle School.
There you go. Some LC news for you. Again, congratulations to Alicia Alexander for winning the NAIA Sports Information Director of the Year. That got announced on Friday. Women's basketball, their schedule was released. They start their season on November 2nd, and they have their first 3 games at home. You can check out the full schedule on lcwarriors.com. For cross country, Brooklyn Shell finished 14th. Carter Gordon finished 15th as LC participated in the WSU Invitational. It was basically a couple of teams from the Cascade Conference, but a lot of bigger schools. So, I mean, LC team-wise struggled, but they were playing some really high competition. Golf back in action starting on Monday at the Corbin Invitational. And for volleyball, season's been rough for them. They are 3-9 now overall. They put up a huge fight against the 4th team in the country, Corbin. That second set was so much fun, but they just could not come away with a victory there. They lost that the second set, 32-30. and then they lose in 4 sets to Bushnell. That was a really fun match. You were there for that one through the first 3 sets, and then the 4th set, it just seemed like LC kind of lost all steam and a lot of energy and just had not much left for the Beacons in that one. They are on the road this weekend. They're at College of Idaho on Friday, and then they take on the number 1 team in the country, Eastern Oregon. But Eastern Oregon did lose last Friday, so we'll see how that goes. See if LC can finally get things going in the right direction.
Yeah, exciting to watch the tempo with these girls and everybody getting in. I know there's only been a couple, I think only 2 players that did not get in. I know Josie's still in street clothes, but fluctuating players in and out. Right. I love watching it. And
they got a good team for sure. Scoreboard update for you. Again, Minnesota beat the Reds 7-0. Miami took care of the Mets 4-3. They were trailing in that game, I think, when I first announced it. Again, Tampa Bay beat the Angels 6-2. Toronto took care of the Yankees 7-1. Nationals over the White Sox 4-3, and Atlanta took care of Philadelphia 9-3. Going on right now, Kansas City with a 7-6 lead over Cleveland, but the Guardians have 2 runners on in scoring position, just 1 out, top of the 8th. Cubs over Pittsburgh 5-1 in the 5th. Brewers with a 6-3 lead over the Cardinals in the top of the 8th inning. Boston and Texas are now tied at 4 apiece, top of the 7th inning, but Boston with runners at 2nd and 3rd and just 1 out. Baltimore with a 9-5 lead over Houston. Mariner fans like to hear that. That one's in the top of the 7th. Speaking of the Mariners, they have a 1-0 lead over Oakland. That one going to the bottom of the 3rd. Scoreless in San Diego between the Rockies and Padres, and Arizona and San Francisco are having an offensive slugfest so far, which hurts me in fantasy because I have one of those pitchers. But Arizona up 5-2 in the bottom of the 2nd, and Detroit up early on the Dodgers 1-0 bottom of the 1st. You want to lead on to the next topic?
Right, so yeah, I was looking at the score here. All right, so there has been so many things coming out with this, and I'm excited. And I know our buddy Eric Watkins has to be excited.
Right.
But there's going to be a new stadium going into Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg area. And did you notice what some of the area is called? It's called Pinella, the Pinellas area, after Lou Pinella. But some things happening there. Tampa Bay is going to get to build a new stadium, $1.3 billion stadium. Here's the sad part: only 30,000 seats, unless they do like a venue, like you were talking, like what WrestleMania would do. Then you'd have people down on the floor and all that.
Yeah. But they're talking about baseball.
30,000 people. That's it.
Well, when do they get 30,000 people to show up for a Rays game? So they're just having less seats, so it looks fuller when you see it on TV. You don't want to have 15,000 people show up for your baseball game and it looks like it's empty. You want 15,000 people to show up and go, that's half full. It's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Three levels. The roof is going to be a fixed closed roof, but the design on the outside leaves a little bit to be desired. It looks
like a box. It looks boring and just. I don't know why we get all these fantastic stadiums being built all over the place. SoFi is like a technological marvel. And then Tampa Bay is like, we'll slightly improve on Tropicana, but we'll make it look like Tropicana. We like the look of our stadium. So we're going to do what the Yankees did and just build a new stadium that kind of resembles the old stadium, but it's not breaking down as much. So it's a horrible stadium. I'm not a fan.
So let's not go back. Let's go take this back one step from last week. Please do not put the quirkiness of the Tropicana with the catwalks going everywhere across the field.
Or at least have the catwalks be higher. Maybe that's a good thing.
Build the roof way out. I mean,
I don't know. The fact that it's, like you said, it's a fixed closed roof and not one that can open up is pathetic at this point. We don't need a domed stadium in baseball anymore, people. It's sad. And now Tampa Bay is going to be there. And then I was excited to see the Expos maybe or not the Expos, but Montreal maybe finally get a team again. We'll see if now they have to expand to get them involved. But I haven't talked to Eric about it. I was hoping he would have a chance to hop on the show and give his 2 cents on it. But it's got to suck as a Rays fan because the stadium looks
it looks boring.
The same. And what was it? 4 years, 5 years from now before it finally opens up. So, oh yeah, this is what you get to look forward to for a few years. Oh yeah, and it cost $1 billion.
So what kind of quirky thing are they going to put in this one? And let's go back to our quirkiness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to. You deleted it already.
Yeah.
But that opens a lot of questions. We do know that the A's are moving and going into Vegas. Mm-hmm. They're going to change things around. Is there any stadiums right now that you can think of in all of the ball clubs that needs some kind of revamp, some kind of freshen up?
Oh man.
I mean, Seattle could use a little bit more. You get, I think they could add a little bit more seating. Their concourse areas to me seem a little bit more narrow. But is there any the ones that you would?
Yeah, it is crazy to think that Safeco or T-Mobile or whatever is over 20 years over 20 years ago now. Man, I don't know because I haven't been to a lot of these stadiums. I'm with you as far as T-Mobile goes. It could use a bit of revamping, but I don't think it's bad. I think the setup for T-Mobile is still pretty solid. I really liked Coors Field when we were able to go to that a few years ago, and I'm sure it needs some updating because it's been out there for a long time. And the only other stadium I've been to was down in Texas, and they've already built a new stadium. So as far as personal feel is difficult, we'll need to get Alicia on this one because she's added to her list of stadiums she has been able to go to. But just looking at this list real quick, just trying to get inspiration. The bottom 2, of course, are Oakland and Tampa Bay. But the Angels are near the bottom of this list. This is a Sports Illustrated list I'm looking at right now. That was built in the late 90s. The Rogers Center for Toronto. Again, that's one that I don't really like the view of either. Comerica Park's on here. Chase Field for the Diamondbacks. And they have American Family Field for the Brewers on here. Maybe they just didn't like the slide. So I don't know. Again, I haven't been to a ton of them. Guaranteed Rate Field for the White Sox just looks like a generic.
I think this is a question we need to pose to our buddy Tatko because
Tatko's been to a lot of them too,
and go around. So with that being said, you brought up a couple of names, and I'm going to throw this at you. And we've discussed this, and we both, I think, kind of agree.
Right.
We see expansion coming.
Yes.
When that's another thing. I think we go back to Canada. Do you think?
Yeah, Montreal.
Montreal will be there.
Yes.
Could be huge adding into that area. What about Mexico?
I personally would love one in Mexico again because of what we saw in the World Baseball Classic.
Right.
Just wherever you want to put it, somewhere. Like I don't think the Dominican Republic could sustain one.
Right.
Just for how small that island is. So somewhere in Mexico, I think would be the best.
So Dominican's farther away than both the Canadian one and the Mexico one. Do we see it farther abroad? Do we see it go across the pond?
No. And it's so much different than football because football is played once a week.
This is
baseball. There's not many days off,
right?
And so it's like the only way that would work is if you had an entire league out there, and then you just made a road trip and you were there for a month.
Right.
And then you come back and take a week off or whatever and get yourself resituated. So I don't think baseball will ever have league teams that are outside of the continental, like North American area. But yeah, I would love one in Montreal and then put one in Mexico, make it 32 teams. And I think we're set.
Do you think we stay at 32 or is there a possibility that we go and find one of these teams in a bigger market? Do we see a Portland team? Do we see a team?
As cool as it would be for a team closer for us to go, Vancouver would be awesome for us because that's not terribly far. But again, it's up in Canada, so you have your own issues of getting across the border and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think we've hit all the good spots here, and especially now that we are moving Oakland to Vegas. I think it fits pretty well. Go back to Montreal because I think they're begging for one, and again, Mexico would be a sweet spot for one. But I can't really think of another city that's like just dying right now to have a baseball.
Yeah, and I think 32 is the key number.
It seems to be the sweet spot in a lot of places, but we'll have to make this a topic on a show that we have more time on, maybe one during the summer, and get some people on and have some conversations. But if you do go to 32, obviously you're going to have to move to 8 4-team divisions. Right. How do you break those up? What team from the AL East is leaving? What team from the AL West? I think Texas would be the logical one. I guess Tampa Bay would too, but how would you break up and make the 4 divisions? The AL Central is all pretty close together. So when one of them has to leave,
that would be a great summer topic of, okay, so if we had to break it up,
how would you break it down?
Do you throw everybody into the pool and say, all right, here, let's just redo everybody?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely could. I mean, would you put, we got a couple minutes before I set us up for the football pick. I'll just say right now, you are listening to the R&R Sports Report on LCWarriorRadio.com, and you can check us out on the R&R Sports Report Facebook and YouTube pages. But let's look at the AL West.
Right.
That's the closer deal, right? So right now you have the Angels, you have the Astros, which I think you could kick out because they're the farthest away. Oakland, which would be Vegas at that point, Seattle, and I'm blanking on a team. Oh, Texas too. So you have 2 teams from Texas. Do you move both of them out? That could change if you had Vancouver as a team. You could go Vancouver, Seattle, Vegas, and the Angels, or you could change it up even more and put the Angels with the Dodgers and have both LA teams there, or do you want to have an LA team in both leagues? Same thing with the Mets and the Yankees. Would you put them together or keep them separate and have one in the American League and one in the National League? It could get really interesting at just trying to figure out what would work best. The only good thing for Seattle is if one of those expanded teams goes to Portland or Vancouver and they finally have a team that they can go to that they don't have to travel as much. But what would you do? I'm giving you control of the AL West. And we'll say Seattle stays in the West. So it's Seattle and what other 3 teams would stay in that division if they expanded?
If it was me, I restructure even AL/NL. If it was me. So I would think you've got coastline. So I would do Seattle, LA, LA, San Diego.
Okay.
But thinking about that, we said that, what's the chances of what happens if Mexico could get one? That you could say Mexico City, Houston, Texas, and
Arizona.
Then Arizona.
Yeah, that's a good spot. I think that's a pretty even area. I do like the idea of having both New York teams and both LA teams split. But that would mess up your coastal thing. You'd have to put the Vegas A's in there since they got switched up. Well, I guess you have San Francisco there too, so you can go San Francisco, San Diego,
and Arizona. I mean,
Dodgers and Seattle or something. I don't know. It would get really messy.
Let's get a map.
You'd have way too many. The one issue, I have no problem doing that with the AFC, NFC, like in the NFL, because that's only been around for so long. But there's such
history
with American League, National League. That you talk to older fans, and they still hate that Milwaukee's in the National League or Houston is in the American League. So if we got really goofy with it, I think a lot of fans would get upset. So it's almost you keep the AL, and the NL on their side. You give one expansion team to the American National League, and then you just have to create another division, kind of like what the NFL did. There was a couple of swaps here and there, but for the most part, AFC and NFC did not swap like the Seahawks did. But it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting once we ever get to that point, if we get
I think we expand, but when it happens, we don't know.
Right. All right, let's get into our football pick'ems. And last week was a good week for both of us. I was 8-2 in high school, 7-3 in college. Hagen was 7-3 in high school, 8-2 in college. So we both went 15-5, which definitely helps our overall record. I am now 34-16. You are 31-19. I'm 17-8 in both high school and college. You're 17-8 in college, but struggling a bit more in high school at 14-11.
I took some chances. I took Clearwater. I took Lakeland. I thought Lakeland would show up.
You took Clarkson over Lewiston for some silly reason.
Listen, I can't go against it.
Yep, that's fair. All right, let's get into our picks. We'll start with high school, and let's start with the Lewiston Bengals, who are 2-2, against Sandpoint, who's 1-3. And this is that matchup that I absolutely love to listen to Brian Danner and Bert Salberg call this game because it's always high action. There's a lot of points involved. Last season, Sandpoint wins at 40-38. But Sandpoint has struggled a bit this year. They've already lost to both Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene, who are in that Inland Empire 5A league that Lewiston is in. So I'm going to take the Bengals here, but if you made me give up more than 3 points, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to take it. They looked so well against Clarkson, Jackson Latham, huge impact with them in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
I think those two Southern trips really killed that momentum for Lewiston, and so
I don't know about killing momentum.
Well,
I think it made them stronger.
You sit in a bus and have to sit in that bus all the way down there.
They made it tough for them, but they didn't have momentum to start with.
So I think they come away with a huge win, and they dominate after, Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene kind of whooping up on Sandpoint.
All right, so we agree there. Clarkson is 2-1 on the year. They're at West Valley, who's 2-1. Are you going up to call that game?
I will. Brian Bremling and myself will have that call on 92.1 The Hank, and should be a great season. I talked to my buddy. You
guys aren't playing a whole season on Friday.
No, Jason Haight, him and I have talked about this game. They are down a little bit this year, so I think Clarkson is just going to come out huge. Carter Steinwan has been running that offense unbelievable.
Well, West Valley is a little bit down. They did win last year 23-0. They've won the last 3 meetings. So I'm going to stick with West Valley here. I hope it is a pick that I am incorrect on. I do like the Clarkson team from what I saw during the Lewis and Clarkson matchup. We'll see how it goes, but West Valley just always seems to have the Bantams number. We'll see where that goes.
But you, sir, and I enjoy that you put this thing in there. You put in there the last time they won, and that was a call that you had.
I forget it. It was a long time ago.
That was Caden Frazier when Frazier threw up the pass at the very end of the ball game. You and I called the game up there in West Valley.
Oh, there you go.
So
a long time ago.
5 years ago, 4 years ago.
it's a unknown number of years ago. Rogers, who was kind of the doormat of the GSL for a while, is 3-0 on the year. Pullman 2-1. Rogers was winless 2 seasons ago. Here they are 3-0. Pullman going through that distraction. Again, we haven't talked about it, but they played North Central. That game got called because the referees were hearing possible racial slurs going on. They did not, at that time, even say which team was doing it. More and more came out. It seemed like it was Pullman that went through it. And then, what was it, the GSL or the WIAA that came out and basically went, the referees were absolutely incorrect in the way they handled the situation. They should not have stopped the game. I loved with that press release that they went, the coaches for Pullman and North Central did what they were supposed to do and shook hands at the end because we have to pour down your throat sportsmanship. Like, no, they were just good human beings, and they didn't even know what was going on at that point. But it was just a dumb thing to add to your press release. But is that going to be a distraction for Pullman this week?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think this is enough to keep them fired up and to prove something. Rogers has come away with some wins over some a little bit easier opponents, I think, and if you look at their schedule. So give me Pullman.
All right, move through some of these a little bit faster. Moscow 1-3, Lake City 1-3. I think Lake City playing a lot of tougher teams for their losses. They lose to Lakeland to start the year, but they were playing a couple of teams from southern Idaho. So give me Lake City.
I'm going to take Moscow. They impressed me when I watched them there a few weeks ago up in Moscow, and they played extremely tight with the Clarkson. I think they can pull off a win.
Lapway 2-1, Logos 4-0. Logos has been insane, 34 points or more in all 4 games this year. You for games that we don't get to go watch, especially these White Pine League teams. You look at common opponents, and we got one. Lapway and Logos both played Kamei. Lapway lost 52-8. Logos won 40-14. So give me Logos.
Yeah, I think Logos ends up winning this one big.
Lakeland is 3-2. Post Falls 3-1. Lakeland did win the last meeting 31-28, but they did lose the Coeur d'Alene last week 54-0. So give me Post Falls.
100% Post Falls should dominate this one.
Potlatch has been red hot as well. They're 3-0 on the year at Troy, who's 1-2. Potlatch has won all 3 games by at least 42 points. And they beat Troy last year 52-14. Give me the Loggers of Potlatch.
I think Potlatch beats these guys this year by 50.
That's a lot. Northwest Christian is off to a pretty good start, as they usually are over there in Washington. They're 3-0 on the year. Asotin is 2-1, off to a pretty good start themselves, but they did lose last week. Northwest Christian has not given up more than 13 points all year. So, again, I hope I'm wrong, and I've been very wrong on most of these Asotin games, whether I pick against them or for them, but I'm going to take Northwest Christian.
Asotin has been very impressive with the Els boy quarterback and what he is doing with this offense. So, but Northwest is just too much, so give me Northwest Christian.
Pomeroy played in a double overtime game last weekend. They take on St. John Endicott Lacrosse. Thank God they don't have 17 other schools with them, but they apparently they cut the good schools. They are 0-3 on the year. Give me Pomeroy.
Yeah, Pomeroy has just been tough. I think this last week was a good one for them. So give me Pomeroy.
We had Kellogg in the picks last week, looking for their first win against St. Mary's, who got their first win against Kellogg. We'll try again. One of these teams has to win. Orfino's 0-2, Kellogg 0-4. Kellogg won last year against the Maniacs 80-0. Give me Kellogg.
Yeah, and besides that, even though Orfino's got a lot to play for this year because of the situation going on with the loss of their player in the accident and all that, I think it's just too much emotion. Kellogg comes away with win.
All right, let's get into college sports. Well, before we do, we have 2 picks different? 3?
2 picks. I think
I took Lake City, you took Moscow, and I took West Valley, and you took Clarkston. So just 2 different?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
2 different.
So 2 different in high school sports. We'll see how that goes. On Friday, college, we start with a Thursday night game, Georgia State at Coastal Carolina. Who you got?
I'm going to take Coastal, and I think they cover the spread 6.5 right now.
Looking at the stats, Georgia State has a quarterback who's been phenomenal so far this year. Darren Granger has only thrown 21 incompletions out of 71 attempts, over 800 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks. And Marcus Carroll, their running back, 67 carries, 358 yards, and 7 touchdowns for Georgia State. With that said, give me Coastal Carolina because you cannot go against the Chanticleers on this show. On Friday, we got a couple of good ones. Wisconsin, the 6-point favorite at Purdue. Obviously, in the Big Ten, you like to run the ball, and the Badgers are giving up less than 100 yards on the ground per game. Give me the Badgers.
I took Purdue last week. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Give me Wisconsin.
In what could be a very ugly game, Boise State, a 7-point favorite at San Diego State. Both quarterbacks have more interceptions than touchdowns this year, and neither of them have really played anybody. Give me Boise State, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to take the locals, the closer team, and much as I would like to take the Aztecs at home, I don't think it's enough. So give me Boise State.
Go to Saturday, and a lot of fun ones this week. Saturday, a lot of good college football to watch. Number 4, Florida State, a 2.5-point favorite at Clemson.
I was back and forth the entire time on this one. I'm going this way. I'm going to go with Clemson, even with Dabo and that. I'm going to take it. It's going to be a close one.
And Jordan Travis having a good year, 53 of 84, 729 through the air, 8 touchdowns, just 1 pick. Clemson lost to Duke of all teams earlier this year, though Florida State did struggle to Boston College. So I like your upset pick, but I'm not going to go that route. Give me Florida State. Number 19, Colorado at number 10, Oregon. that number right? Oregon's a 21-point favorite in this game.
When I looked it up this afternoon.
That's a lot. Who do you got?
I think Oregon puts the hurting down, and especially with I'm drawing
Howard.
No, our two-way guy not out. Travis Henry. I was trying to draw a blank.
Yep.
I think that big is going to play big.
Travis Hunter.
Give me Oregon.
Yeah, I got to go Oregon as well. I didn't realize the number was that big when I would put our picks together, but Colorado's just giving up too many yards. Defensively, Oregon has a fantastic offense. Though that 21 number could be fuel to the fire that Deion Sanders likes to light. So it could be an interesting game, but I'm taking the Ducks. Number 22, UCLA at number 11, Utah, who's a 4.5-point favorite. UCLA has played Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, and North Carolina Central. That has been the Bruins season. Give me Utah.
Yeah, I'm going to take Utah as well.
Number 14, Oregon State, a 3-point favorite at number 21, Washington State. Who do you got?
I am going to take Cam Ward and what he is doing with Washington State right now. I think they're just really, really good defensively. Also with Stone, I think WSU beats number 14.
I'm going with the homer pick.
I am.
I like the defense for Oregon State, one of the better defenses in the country, let alone the Pac-12, where, as we saw with Colorado, you don't play defense. I like Cameron Ward. I've liked what I've seen, but there's no running game for Washington State. Ward is your leading rusher, and he only has 95 yards. It's not good enough. Give me Oregon State. Number 24, Iowa is at number 7, Penn State. I only really put this on here because both teams were ranked, but I don't believe in Iowa, so give me Penn State.
Yeah, I think Penn State's just going to be too good, especially at home, so give me them 14.5-point favorite.
How about number 15, Ole Miss, at number 13, Alabama?
I struggled with this one. I was back and forth. I don't see Alabama, even with all the quarterback issues, being that far down. I think they win at home. It's going to be close.
Yeah, give me Ole Miss. Alabama is struggling against USF. They have not had a good job with any of the quarterbacks that they've thrown out there. Ole Miss, their offense is too good. You cannot fall down behind this team. So the dynasty might be in trouble here for the Crimson Tide, finally. Number 6, Ohio State, a 3-point favorite at number 9, Notre Dame. Just of note, Marvin Harrison Jr., who could be a top 5 pick this year. So far, just 14 catches for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns for Ohio State. Give me 7 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Harrison in this game, and give me the Buckeyes.
And you put it in here. It's this both ball clubs' real first big game, and I think that's how I'm going to go the home team. Not a big, huge fan of Ohio State. I think Notre Dame has something to prove at home.
So there you go. I think we had 3 games different in that one. I took Ohio State. You took Notre Dame. I took Ole Miss. You took Alabama. And I took Oregon State. You took Washington State. I believe the rest. No, I took Florida State, and you took Clemson.
I think we have 4 different. Yeah.
4 different in college. So 6 out of the 20 we pick differently this week. Aussie rules football. We were down to 6. Now we're down to 4. One game was good. One game not as much, especially for somebody who picked Port Adelaide last week. But Carleton and Melbourne, absolutely fantastic game between those two in the semifinals. Carleton wins 73-71, and that went down to the final seconds.
Yeah, that was you and I had seen each other, or ran into each other. We worked there on Saturday, and the first thing you asked me is, did you watch the games yet? I'm like, no spoiler, but yet it lived up to every bit of that one. I told you just before we went on the air that the physicality between these games was just there was a song that just hit my head, and all I could think of was "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor." And that exactly. I mean, right. They were hitting each other
can you
so
name the band?
Physical. No. I just
come on. It's Drowning Pool.
Yeah. I had somebody used to sing it karaoke all the time, but
really, that's a horrible karaoke song.
Oh yeah, they would come in. That was their one that they would do. But yeah, the physicality between both ball clubs was just unmatched, and I think might be ranking in one of the best games that I saw all season.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The other one, not as much. GWS took care of Port Adelaide, 93-70. So we're down to the final 4 teams. Preliminary finals. Number 1 Collingwood will take on number 7 GWS. I just can't see GWS continuing this great run. So give me Collingwood. That one's at Friday, 2:50 a.m. Pacific time.
Gotta let everybody know I picked both of them right this last week, and I
skipped over that part.
So I took them both, and I agree with you 100%. GWS was playing quite well. I just don't think they're good enough to beat Collingwood the way Collingwood played early in the season and then wrapping up towards the end. So I think Collingwood takes care of business.
And then finally Saturday at 12:15 a.m. Pacific time, number 2 Brisbane, which is Eric's pick to win the whole thing, versus number 5 Carlton. Carlton's my pick to win this whole thing. Give me the Blues.
I'm impressed. I should be back home traveling from Spokane for West Valley game. Get home right about this time. I'm hoping to watch this live. I'm hoping I can stay awake to watch it. But I'm like you. Carlton has impressed me over the last few weeks, if not the entire season. I think this is going to be another replay of what we saw their last Thursday when they played. I think it's going to be good. Give me Carlton.
Yeah, I work on Saturday night, so I will be able to watch this live. I'm very excited for it. It should be a really, really fun matchup between the two. Now we're out of notes.
Yeah, we are.
We got nothing else. That's what happens when nobody is on the show live and commenting with us. Things just kind of move smoothly. How's your day?
Well, I'm curious. I didn't get any text, so I'm curious about how the middle schoolers handled Jennifer. I mean, Jennifer is always going to be tough, and so
there you go.
Other than that,
that's all we got. That's our show. We'll end up a little bit soon. Next week, 200.
God, I can't believe.
Or no, 150. Sorry, 150.
150.
I'm ahead of myself. 150 episodes next week, but we will end the show just a little bit early, and nothing wrong with that. I win the sports-related draft because nobody voted for Robert, and that's just how things work.
And we will have, I do know, I shared with you, we might have some info of high school signing next week. We'll let you know with that one.
Absolutely. We will get to it, all that and so much for next week. Thanks so much for hanging out with us this week. But until Tuesday, that's Robert. I'm Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report, and we are out.